Good afternoon. My name is Alexandra Sorota. I'm with the North Carolina Budget and Tax Center, a project of the North Carolina Justice Center. And I'm here today to share with you information about building thriving communities and the ways in which our recent budget and tax decisions will make that work more difficult, as well as talk to you about how you can engage in these really important policy conversations. Thank you so much for the opportunity to talk with you a little bit more about the Budget and Tax Center. We're a nonprofit, nonpartisan project of the North Carolina Justice Center based in Raleigh, North Carolina, and working statewide to advance economic opportunity for more people and places. For our work, we think a lot about the ways in which budget and tax policy decisions impact our daily lives, everything from the water we drink to the way we get to work, to the opportunities we have for learning and education in our communities. Budget and tax decisions really make a difference for the quality and opportunities in our daily lives. For many years, there's been a conversation happening publicly that public investments are hurting our economic outcomes. But what we know from the research is that smart public investments can drive better economic outcomes. They can do that by helping the economy function productively and efficiently. They can promote equity of opportunity in differing local contexts. So particularly when we pool our resources and are able to make sure that communities that may not have as much wealth are able to invest in, for example, the education of their children, we can create equity of opportunity. Public investments can also open up new markets. We've seen this particularly in the clean energy space, where public research and development has supported the design and development of new technologies. And then finally, public investments can stabilize and stimulate the economy. This is a particularly important role in times of downturn, when public dollars can make sure that communities and families have what they need to continue to participate actively in the economy. So I'm going to talk to you a little bit about what the recent tax decisions mean. I'm going to talk to you both about federal level tax decisions and state level tax decisions. The federal tax plan, which was passed in December 2017, is one that will really hurt many and benefit the wealthy few. This research and graph I'm sharing here shows that more than a third of the benefit, the largest share of the tax cut, goes to the richest 5% of taxpayers, and more than a third goes to the richest 1% of taxpayers by 2027. Moreover, 1 million low and middle income North Carolinians would see their tax load increase under the federal tax plan. So the federal tax decisions that were made in December 2017 primarily benefited wealthy taxpayers and private corporations, and shifted the tax load for low and middle income taxpayers over time. Importantly, too, the new tax law adds $1.5 trillion to the U.S. deficit. That's $150 billion in revenue losses each year. And that's a very big number. And so it's sometimes hard to imagine what that number represents. And so to give you a picture of what could have been possible with $150 billion, America could have doubled its Pell Grant program, doubled its cancer research, funded the backlog of needed maintenance at national parks, provided child care assistance to 6 million children, provided opioid addiction treatment to 300,000 people, and trained 3.5 million workers for in-demand jobs. Our country could have done all of those things with those dollars in a single year. And so the deficit is likely to lead to conversations about concerns around spending, even though we know that driving the deficit right now is primarily the decisions that were made with regards to federal tax policy. The issue then will be whether programs, many of which have been signaled to be on the table for cuts, will be cut in the coming years. Among those are programs that provide vital services for North Carolinians, everything from access to health care and preventive care to housing and food assistance. for those who are struggling to meet their basic needs. These policy ideas that came out of the federal plan shouldn't be new to us here in North Carolina. In fact, much of what the federal plan built its ideas on was the same ideas that drove North Carolina to cut taxes in 2013. And so I'll turn now to talk a little bit about those tax cuts since 2013 at the state level. In North Carolina, since 2013, the overwhelming majority of the tax cuts have benefited the wealthiest taxpayers in our state. The top 1% receive an average tax cut of $22,000 a year under this tax plan. Going forward, the lowest 20%, those with incomes less than $20,000, those living on poverty incomes, receive a tax cut of just $16. In addition to the tax shift and the upside down nature of our tax code that has been made worse by the state level tax changes, the state level tax changes have also held spending low as a part of our economy. And North Carolina spending in the most recent budget is at a 45-year low relative to the size of our economy. And so you see those two orange bars at the end of the graph showing that our state appropriations planned for over the next 2 years will be at historic lows relative to our typical investment in the foundation of opportunity and economic well-being across our state. Perhaps most disturbing is the fact that our state tax choices are likely to make it difficult to keep up with state investments over time. So official estimates have projected that by 2018, 20, our revenues will be coming in below what we need to spend to keep up with current service levels. This is disturbing, not just because it means that our tax code is not aligned with the needs in our communities, but it means that we will be ill-prepared to deal with any unexpected expenses that are needed to deal with a public health crisis or a natural disaster, and we will be unable to make up for losses if federal cuts to programs are become a reality. Under North Carolina's tax code, today, as I mentioned, more North Carolinians, the tax load is heavier for middle and low income taxpayers than it is for the top 1% of taxpayers in the state. And much of the argument regarding these tax changes has been that we need to cut the tax rate in order to be competitive. And North Carolina, as you can see here, has been very aggressive in cutting our tax rate since 2013. We've adopted a flat, low personal income tax rate, reduced our corporate income tax rate, and those policies will continue. In 2019, the personal income tax rate will drop to 5.25, and the corporate income tax rate will drop again to 2.5%. As you can see, comparing us to our regional partners, we actually are not in line with our regional partners on most of these rates, really embracing a race to the bottom. So I want to talk a little bit about the arguments behind cutting taxes and why proponents of tax cuts believe that they will boost the economy. This is part of trickle-down economics theory that the rich, by gaining more wealth, will invest in the creation of jobs and spend to create demand, and that those benefits will trickle down to everyday people in the form of higher pay, increased revenue, and benefit communities. The reality, of course, over the past several decades of experimentation at the national level as well as in other states with trickle-down economics is that when wealthy people receive a tax break, they tend to offshore those dollars, save them, asset prices tend to rise. The result is little to no net job gain. We've seen the consolidation of wealth and its benefits to a smaller and smaller group of people in our country, and the growth of income inequality. For everyday people in our country, the impact of trickle-down economics has been increased tax loads for low and middle income taxpayers through increasing the sales and property taxes, decreased investments in public institutions that have proven their power in supporting prosperity. And we've also seen that these policies, when you cut taxes at the top, are not the best way to promote work. In many ways, much of the conversation about taxes and trickle-down economics is built on the idea, two main ideas. One, that the wealthy are primarily responsible for growing our economy, the wealthy and big corporations, and that the government is really stealing from everyday people when they collect taxes. And both of these ideas are incredibly problematic when you look at what actually grows the economy. We know that the role of consumers is of paramount importance to the strength of a local economy. The ability of people to have the income to go to their grocery store and purchase food supports the cashiers, supports the local community's business. The ability of those workers to pay their utility bills, to pay for their rent, benefits the broader infrastructure in a community. And so this vision of trickle-down economics is inherently flawed and inherently hurts the ability to support the job creators in our communities who are consumers and homegrown businesses. And so it's not surprising that when we ask the question, is North Carolina thriving, that we look at the data and find that there are many reasons to be concerned about the economic path that North Carolina is on. We are currently in an economic recovery that began in 2009 nationally. North Carolina's experience of that recovery has been the slowest in a generation. You can see that light blue bar, just how long it took us to get back to pre-recession employment levels. Notably, you can see that even within the implementation of tax cuts, we did not see a change in the trajectory that we were on. That is, job growth remained growing at the same pace that it had been before the tax cuts went into effect. The other economic reality in North Carolina is that the share of North Carolinians with a job is still depressed, whereas prior to the early recession in 2000, North Carolina tended to have a higher employment level on average than the national average. We are now below the national average and only slightly catching up. Finally, in North Carolina, we see that the primary gains in wages have been for those who are already highly paid. The top 10% of workers in North Carolina have seen their hourly pay grow by $5, whereas the bottom 10th percentile have actually seen their wages decline, not keep up with the growing cost of goods and services. Moreover, the economic picture on average looks different when you dig in deeper at the community level. And what we see here is that in 87 counties, there are more jobless workers than there are job opportunities. The primary location of job growth in North Carolina has been in our major metro centers, and 3 counties account for more than half of the job growth since the recession began: Wake, Durham, and Mecklenburg counties. So what lies ahead? In 2018, legislators will return in North Carolina to put together the second year of their budget. This will be a critical decision point regarding whether legislators will continue to cut taxes and public investments and hurt the ability of local communities to connect to opportunity. They will also need to make decisions about how to engage with federal policy changes, including the tax law. And so it's really critical that you take the opportunity to use your voice in the policy debate, engage with the media and your networks to tell the story of how policy choices are impacting your community, what you would like to see and what would work better for your community locally, and then that you engage directly with your elected leaders to share your ideas. Your voice is really critical as we move our state forward to expand opportunity. With that, I thank you so much for joining us, and I'm available at alexandra@nzjustice.org for any questions or comments that you may have. Thank you so much for your time.